So first, we want to talk about preparation. We want you to be familiar with the requirements and details of your contract. This webinar is not going to walk you through how to read a contract, but you should know how to read a contract and know what your contract says. Know what your program manager or contract manager expects from you in your claim submissions. And really, for DOL, this is called the contract manager. That's the person you'll be dealing with. You should have your documents ready prior to logging in. So processing a claim for payment is not just going into the gateway and clicking a button. You actually have supporting documentations in the form of PDFs that you have to prepare for us, and you have to upload into the system. So it makes sense to get those ready before you log in and have to fumble around with that. Be aware of what categories your claims will fall under. I believe most of these are in the category of other, so that's where I'll be putting my claims in, and you may be doing that as well. If you have multiple items to claim, make sure you know how much your claim should add up to. So let's say you have one invoice for $5,000 and one for $6,000. You know that it adds up to $11,000. You want to make sure that everything adds up at the end so you're not missing something. And very important, and I'm going to underline this, is this last part here where it says, ensure you have the right role to submit your claim. And that is really a sticking point with a lot of organizations, a lot of grantees that we deal with, a lot of people that contact our help desk. They seem to miss that part, and it's really important to have the right role. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute as well. So again, talking about knowing the details of your contract, is there an advance allowed? So you can actually read your contract and find that out. On your contract in Section 3B of the state terms and conditions, it talks about it. And Section 1A of Attachment D will actually explain your specific advance details. So in this case, advances are not allowed for for-profit organizations or municipalities, but I don't know that municipalities are part of this, but they are allowed for NFPs or not-for-profit organizations. So only a not-for-profit organization is allowed to put in for this 25% advance. And how often are claims allowed or required? But it's stated in your contract. So in Section 1B of Attachment D, that section talks about when your claims are due. And certainly your contract manager can help you with that as well. So it's not like you're in trouble if you don't do it right away or within 30 days, but that's kind of how it's laid out in the contract, and you should do it as written in the contract. Okay, program expectations. So you need to know what your contract manager expects from you in your claim submissions. So what I'm going to be going over here is kind of general what all or most of these claims will need from a DOL perspective. But there may be certain nuances with your contract and your contract manager that you should be aware of. So each program and grantee may have different requirements for claim submission. But all the contractors here related to these CFA WDI contracts will have to provide this DRR spreadsheet and backup documents requested by the contract manager in program emails you might receive. So and then you'd have to include additional documents outlined by the contract manager, such as this form ES-700 that I have here, that I'll show you in a few minutes, which is the trainee information form. And of course, you have to have details, supporting documentation that supports that you actually made the payment. So uploads should be also labeled clearly, because as you'll see when I do the upload, there's kind of a free form entry where you can name it. And we want you to name it with the name of the item, the date that it covers, certain information, so it's easily identifiable. We don't want you just to call it upload, because that will just not be helpful. And you also have to have the invoice and proof of payment for these items that you're claiming. Those items need to line up with the contract requirements. You can't put in a claim in the category of other for something that's not related to your program and that's not approved for use in your program. So obviously you're only claiming for things that your program is allowed to do. Again, your best point of contact would be your contract manager, and of course reading the details of your contract. So there's a lot of text here. I'm not going to go through all of this, but there are requirements for advances. And if you're a not-for-profit, you'll get this information from your contract manager. But essentially, again, I'm not going to go into details of these. A statement from a certified CPA certifying that the contractor's bookkeeping practices have been reviewed within the last 12 months, a copy of a fidelity bond covering all persons who will handle funds granted by the state, and program responsibility and tax certification. So these are other items that are required for advances that not-for-profits will be submitting. So that's the extent of details I'm going to provide for that. You can get the details from your contract manager for the rest of it. So like I said before, you need to have your documents ready in advance before you get into the gateway and do it. And it's important that you understand that everything has to be a PDF. So there are certain documents, for instance, I forget the name of the form now, but it's a spreadsheet, and you're going to have to actually convert that spreadsheet into a PDF. So it's something that may be challenging for some people, but it is important. And if you are using Microsoft Excel, it is built into Excel, and I'll show you how to do that. The other thing is to ensure that PDFs are not password protected, and I'll actually show you an example of one that is, so you can see what the problem would be. If you were to include a secured or password-protected PDF, our system would not be able to read it, and it would just kind of reject or not show you that document has been uploaded. So we want to make sure that the passwords are stripped from it. Scans are allowed, but native PDF documents are preferred. So if you were to scan something with a scanner that turned it into a PDF, yeah, that's allowed. Sometimes that's all you have because maybe all you have is paper. But we really would prefer a native PDF document just because it'll be a lot cleaner and easier to read. And of course, again, follow your contract manager's guidance for how to prepare these documents. So again, this webinar is not how to get your documents together and what documents you need. It's how to do it in the gateway once you have everything together. So I talked earlier about logging in with the right role, and this is really important. You have to be in the role of Grantee Payment Signatory to be able to submit the claim. Now, that doesn't mean that's the only person that can start the claim, as you can see down here below. So the other roles that can start the claim but can't submit it, the Grantee System Administrator, the Grantee Contract Signatory, and the Grantee. Again, those users can start it, they just can't submit it. So you would need to talk to the person at your organization that manages your accounts, and that's this Grantee Delegated Administrator. So we don't do it for you. Someone at your organization is the one that sets up the roles for your organization. They can add an account for you if necessary, and that may be you. So after your claim is submitted, what happens? So how do you know that your claim has been submitted? Well, one thing is that it'll change statuses, and it'll be changed to the status called Payment in Review. And also, you'll no longer have a task for that payment or be able to edit it. So when we create the claim for payment, there will be a task, and that task will go away because, of course, you have processed it and sent it into DOL for review. And then how do you follow the progress? Well, you can observe the current payment status. Anytime you look at your contract and look at your payments, you can see the status. You can review what's called the payment schedule report, which I'll show. And you can look at a screen called the payment calculation and coding screen, which I'll show you. Well, I might not be able to show you because I won't get that far here, but I'll talk about it and mention it. So we'll get into that, and you'll see it a lot better when we get into the system. All right, so that's it. Just 8 slides here. I wanted to go through those quickly, and then we'll get into the system itself and talk about how to actually do this. So first of all, the DRR document. This is a Excel spreadsheet, and this is blank. I haven't filled anything out here, but you can see there's several tabs. So this is that DRR document, but again, you can't just upload it as a Excel spreadsheet. You're going to have to file, save as Adobe PDF, and you're going to have to add all of the sheets here. So I'm just going to do add all, and we might have to check around with actual size versus fit to paper. I'm going to do convert to PDF. I'm going to save it to my desktop. And here's that PDF. So if I had filled it out, you can see a couple things that are bleeding over. So for instance, this page 5 here, we might need to mess around with. So that's something that DOL might want to take a look at before we kind of finalize this document. The other thing I wanted to point out, remember I mentioned the documents, is that this ES700, the trainee, I forget what it's called, trainee information document, is actually a secure document as provided to me by DOL. And again, that's not going to fly. Our system will not allow this to be uploaded. And you can tell, if you look in my top left here, the name of the file, and it says the word secured. So that means it's kind of password protected and locked. That won't fly in the gateway. It won't allow you to upload it. So we've saved it as non-secured. And if I go back to my desktop, I did it somewhere here. Where did I do it?
And Jeff, we made some changes to that document already. So we have 3 unsecure documents ready to go, one for EET, one for NHT, and one for UWT. So people should be all set.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So again, what you'll see me uploading is a blank one. I'm not going to fill it out, but you obviously will. All right. So I wanted to point those out. So let me go into my browser. And just FYI, I am using Microsoft Edge. This works fine on Chrome, Firefox, Edge, and Internet Explorer. It was actually built for Internet Explorer. You will see some slight weird display issues with everything besides IE11, just because that's how it was designed. But for the most part, everything works fine in all the browsers, and Safari as well, I should say. This is the grants management website, grantsmanagement.ny.gov. And this is our website for information for grantees and for state agencies as well. But we do have, you can see here, under training and guidance, we have a link for grant applicants, and we have apply and manage. We actually have a section called request a payment. So this is generic, not specific for your program, of course, but it does go through most of the things that I will talk about in a few minutes. So if you want a quick way of getting to it, we have this. We also have the vendor user manual, which has details, the whole process of going through and processing a claim for payment. We do have a generic video. I believe that's here under training and guidance for grant applicants. And then go down to instructional videos right here. So there's a video here for request payment. So it's generic. It's, it doesn't include the details we're going to include here. But I just wanted to point this out. Again, this is the grants management website, grantsmanagement.ny.gov. And of course, we do have a help desk under this Get Help tab. You can see that we have a help desk. We have a phone number. Because of COVID, we're still mostly remote. Most of us are there only 2 days every 2 weeks. So yeah, that number works, but it might be a lot easier to email us at this grants gateway at its.ny.gov email address. Now again, you should really be contacting your contract manager if you have questions about details of your specific claim. We can't help you with that, but we can help you with problems that you might have navigating the system, dealing with login issues and things like that. Okay, and of course you would be going to the grants gateway to actually process your claim. I'm going to zoom in. This is the grants gateway, grantsgateway.ny.gov. One thing I'd like to point out here, you might be a new user. Maybe you didn't work on your contract, so maybe you're only the person that's going to be working on the payment and haven't done anything else. Don't put www in the address. I know a lot of people are in the habit of that, and if I do that, you'll see I actually get an error, and that's just a way that the state manages their secure websites, the security isn't on the www version of it. So if you get that error, that's just because you've probably typed in www. Don't do that. Just type in grantsgateway.ny.gov. Now, in my case, I'm going to log into our test system, but you would go up here to Grants Gateway Login, and type in your user ID. I'm going to go to our training system here and do the same thing. Okay, so I logged in as Zara, and we have she's in the right role, grantee contract signatory, and that was important that we did that. Now, again, you could be in a grantee role or a grantee, I'm sorry, this is the wrong one, grantee contract signatory. I need to be the payment signatory, which is, sorry, a different role. And you know what? I think I will go through with this account just to show you that I can't submit it, and then later on I'll log in as her payment signatory. So you need to first get to your contract. How do you do that? You can search for contracts up here. And when I search on contracts, you can see it remembers the last thing you searched, and the last thing Zara searched for was here, CFA WDI. So that's the opportunity ID. If you only have one or two or a handful of contracts, you could actually leave everything blank here or hit the clear button, and it would show all contracts. But in my case, I'm going to keep this ID in here and hit search. You also may know your contract number. It's a 5-digit number. It could have leading zeros in it, but you can put that in as well. So I'm just going to search for it this way. I'll click search, and I found 2 contracts for the CFA WDI program. So one is from 11/5/19 to 11/4/2020. They're both for those dates, actually, and one is for $56,000 and one is for $60,000. So you may only have one, but we just have 2 to test with. So you can see contract number 00259 and contract number 00260. So I'm going to pick just randomly, I'm going to pick contract number 260. So I've gone to contracts, I've searched for the contract, I see the results, and I'm going to pick which one I need to put my claim in for. So that'll be this one here, number 260. Okay, so I'm in the contract. This is a executed contract, meaning it's been approved and signed by everybody, and this is a contract that you are now working on. You are now providing services for. So it has to be in the status of contract executed. You cannot start a claim if it's not in the status of contract executed. So if you had worked on your contract, you may be familiar with the forms menu. The forms menu is where all the different forms that make up your contract were added and edited and approved. So that's not where we're going to work on the claim, but I just want to point that out because the claim itself will have its own forms menu. So you do that here under Progress Reports and Related Documents. So if you're logged in as the appropriate type of role, you'll have, as you hover over here, the ability to initiate a payment. I know the grammar is kind of weird, initiate a and payment, or initiate a progress report. And of course, we're doing a payment, so I will initiate a payment. So you get this pop-up here, processing, please wait. The reason we have this is because sometimes we had issues with people kind of multiple clicking and starting several claims for payment when they only intended to be one. So please let that go. You can see it only took a couple seconds for me. I've seen it take maybe a minute for some people. I think it's probably related to, you know, the speed of your network or something like that. But let that process. And what happened was we just started a invoice, INV, for this contract number 260. So if you remember, our contract number was DOL 01 COO C00260 GG-3550000. But what we did was we just started an invoice for that, so it's now INV, and this is invoice number 1, so you can see the trailing 001. So if you were ever talking to your contract manager or maybe somebody at the help desk and you wanted to reference this, you could say, this is my DOL contract 260, invoice number 001, or payment number 001. So I could always get back to my contract by clicking here in the parent information, but right now, since I started this invoice, I'm on the payment main page, and I have, like I said, its own little forms menu now, right here in the forms menu. So that's what I'm going to do. This main page has nothing in it yet. Of course, I haven't put in any amount yet. So I'll go to forms menu, and you can see one of the important things here is payment properties. So I'll go to payment properties. So what we're doing is we're telling the system, somebody just asked, missed the step to bring up the window to request the payment. Can you please let me know what that is? That was right here, progress reports and related documents, and it was initiate a claim, initiate a payment. So we initiated it, we went into the forms menu, we went to payment properties, and we need to tell the system what type of claim am I putting in for. Are we putting in for a claim or an advance? And in my case, I'm going to start on an advance. And I'm going to say, no, this is not the final payment. You can see that there are red asterisks. These are fields that are required. And you know what? I forget the details of my contract. What was that, 11/4/19, I want to say? I'm going to type in the payment period. Find out if I'm right. And then the payment IRS code, you can ignore. This is not a required field. You can see there's a drop down there, but you can ignore that. So you have to tell the system what type of payment I'm putting in for. Is it the final payment, yes or no? And what dates does this span? And I'm going to click Save. Okay, I got the date wrong. I'm going to just open this in a new tab and verify my dates. What were my dates? 11.5, I was off by a day. So 11.5 to 11.4. And that's good to know. The system checks that and says, wait a minute, you are not putting in for dates that are allowable. Okay, so I'll hit save. All right, and now I don't have an error, you can see, because of course I picked an appropriate date range. All right, so I went to the Forms menu. I saved the contract. Whoops, what did I do here? Oh, gotta go back in here. This is actually a good thing. How do you get back to the claim that you started? I don't know what I just clicked on, but I got into the contract main page instead of the claim. Well, how do I get back to that claim? Well, since I'm in the contract, I can hover over progress reports and related documents, and where before there was only the option to initiate the claim, now there's actually that claim 001 that I can click on and get back into. So I must have clicked on this when I didn't intend to, and you can see payment properties is still the error, so I have to fix that. So I'll go and fix those dates again. 11.5, I probably hit enter is what I did. 11.4, and we'll hit save here. Okay, so that fixed the dates. Now we're happy. Now if I look at this Forms menu, notice when I hover over it, it still only says payment properties, but if I click the word Forms menu, you can see now there's a few other items. So payment properties we've taken care of, but of course advance request is next, and you can see there's a red hand here, and that's telling me that there's an issue with this. Well, that's because I didn't fill anything out yet, so we'll go here to advance request. And it gives you an error just because this page is blank so far, but you need to go here and fill out how much you're requesting. So you can see my contract is $60,000. I'm a not-for-profit, so it's allowing me a 25% advance. So that would be $15,000. So if I tried to put in $15,001, and you have to type in the justification, you might want to talk to your contract manager to see what they want you to write there. But if I put in $15,001, you can imagine it's going to give me an issue. And you can see the amount request cannot be greater than the advance amount calculated. So I'm going to put in $15,000 and hit save. And you can see that that worked out fine, and now the system is allowing that. One caveat here, one little bug that I should make you aware of. If this is not a round number, let's say this is $15,078, the system actually has a weird rounding and calculation error where if I put in $15,078, it would give me an error. You need to be 1 penny less. So if your numbers are not round numbers that end in 00, you need to make sure that you're 1 penny less when you put in your claim. Sorry, it's a defect. It's a weird thing, part of the system, but that's the way it is. Okay, so I've put in my advance request, the amount of money that's allowed for me, no more, no less. You certainly can do less. And I'll go back to the Forms menu by clicking on the word Forms. And you can see there's three more items here: Payment and Voucher Preview, Payment Uploads, and Notes. And if you remember in that PowerPoint, there was those 3 documents that need to be included. I'm not going to include those, but I am going to show you how to make uploads. So you go to Payment Uploads, and we're going to have supporting documentation, and it's my advanced justification. Remember, we're still in advance. We're not doing a standard claim. And my description, writing, this is the description that your contract manager suggested you put in. And I'm going to pick a file to upload. Now, I'm just going to pick one of those WDIs. I'm not going to actually, which one is it? This one right here. This is not obviously one of the real documents you would be including, but I just want to show you how to put in one PDF. So I did that, and I clicked the Save button up here in the top right. My data has been saved. I could now go and type in another item if I wanted to. I'm not going to. We'll do that when we get into the regular claim later. Okay, so if I go back to the Forms menu, clicking on the word Forms, I've done payment properties, I've done advance requests, I've done payment uploads. There are notes here. Yeah, you could use it if necessary, but it's probably rare that you'll need it. But the way this works, just FYI, here are my comments, and I can hit save. And this will time and date stamp who wrote it at what time and what day. and in what process. And this is just kind of something that stays with the payment forever. So I don't know that you need it. I would not utilize that unless your contract manager really wanted you to, but I just wanted to point out what is there. So we did everything except for the payment voucher preview, so let's do that. And what this is doing is it's going to put all those documents together into one document, which is what the reviewer might see when they look at your claim, or in this case, your advance request. So it's processing it on the fly. That's why things are kind of spinning here. Give it a minute or so to do it, and you can see mine's done already. And if I click on it, if you've ever seen an application or a contract in the Grants Gateway, this is the same type of format. So there's a cover page. This is my claim number. I'm happen to be in 002. That's my application number. 001, there's that invoice number there. It is in advance. So we have the contract term and contract period. And then, of course, my invoice or my advance claim here covers that same period, and again, for $15,000. The adjusted amount is the amount that the reviewer at DOL might have adjusted it to, because for whatever reason, they didn't accept the original amount. Nothing's been done yet because, of course, I haven't even submitted this yet. But it does show now the advance request form. This is basically a screenshot of what we had filled out before. And it does a list of attachments, kind of a table of contents, and then those actual attachments. Okay, so what I had said you would encounter if you were not using the right role is I don't have the ability to, 1, certify this, and 2, submit it. So if you wanted to submit your claim, you would go to status changes and submit it, but you can see, nope, I don't have any options here. Again, that's because I'm in the role of grantee contract signatory, not grantee payment signatory. So let's pick up with the grantee payment signatory and see how they can actually certify this and actually then submit it. So I'm going to log out, and I'm going to go and not under the contract signatory, but the payment signatory role. I'll log in, and again, I'll search under contracts, and I'll search under WDI, and there's the 2, and now I forget which one I did. I think it was number 260 I did. So I'll click on it. Yeah, it was number 002, so 260. I'll click on it, and I'll go to progress reports and related documents, and I'll see 001 right there. So that's one way of searching it. Go through, search for the contract, find the contract, and hover over progress reports and related documents. Another way to do it, you can see there's actually a payment search up here as well. So I clicked on payments, and then typed in here again, I could do payment number 001. You may have a lot of 001s. You may have, my ID. I know that was CFA WDI. So if I just type in WDI, let's see what I find when I search for that. And again, I find that invoice number 001, which is an advance. Okay, so either way, searching by contracts, searching by payments, I can get back into the claim that was started by the grantee contract signatory. And now, as I'm the payment signatory, I can do the 2 things that are required. I can go back to the forms menu, and I can go to advance requests. Actually, I think it's on the other one. Oh, no, it's right here. And I have to check this payee certification. So this was not available to that contract signatory before, but since I'm a payment signatory, I am able to check that box and then hit save. You can see, I should have read what it says, but I certify that the above bill is just, true, and correct. No part thereof has been paid except as stated, and that the balance is actually due and owing, and then taxes from which the state is exempt are excluded. Okay, so that's just showing my name, title, and date that I attested to that. So now all that's left to do is send this into my reviewer at DOL. And that's just done by status changes, and you can see there's an option to cancel it or submit it. And of course, I'm going to click the option to apply the status of payment submitted. So just an FYI, you can't delete a payment claim. Maybe you've started one and it was an error and you want to get rid of it. There's no deleting it. You can just cancel it and kind of make it dormant, but it doesn't actually disappear from the system. So I'm going to submit it. Again, status changes, payment submitted. And then again, I'm attesting to that attestation that I read before, and yes, I agree. And that claim for payment has been, or that claim for advance has now been submitted. How do I know it's been submitted? Well, if I look at details here, I can see it's now in a different status, payment in review. If I go all the way back and search for it, either under payments or contracts, if I go to contracts and I hit search and I go into the contract itself, I can see there it is again. I can look at that status, or I can go to payments. I can search for that payment. Remember, we were doing payment number 001, and I'll hit search, and I can see there's that status there, payment in review. One more thing I want to point out about this before I get into a standard claim is back on the payment main page, all I did was click on the payment 001. There's this right here, payment schedule report. And if I click on it, it's going to show a PDF that I can open up here and zoom in a slight bit here. And it's going to show the process workflow here. So what happens in each step, how many days are actually scheduled for it, and where have we been so far. So right now, the only thing that's happened, if I look down below here, is that it's been submitted. So the payment in process, payment was started, it was submitted, and at that same time, at 10:39, it has gone into the status of payment in review. So you can see it would go through payment in review. It could perhaps go to payment information requested, which I'll talk about later. The fiscal manager may review it. Then the status of payment calculation and coding. It may have to sit here for awaiting funding. That's kind of rare, but just FYI. And then it's actually being processed in SFS, the statewide financial system. So you can see how many days are allotted for each. And right now, of course, we've only gone in through, just a few minutes, 14 minutes here. Okay, so that was a claim for an advance. Let's do an actual claim for a payment. So I'm going to start going all the way back to contracts. And remember, I'll actually go back to home. Remember, I am the Grantee Payment Signatory, so I'm going to be able to do everything. I'm going to be able to start it and submit it. Okay, so I'm going to go back and search for my contracts, my WDI contracts. I'm going to hit search, and I find the two. I'm going to do one for this one now, contract number 259, the one that's for $56,000. So I click on it, and just like we did before, how do I initiate the request? I go to progress reports and related documents, and I initiate a payment. So again, there's not one here because I did the other contract before, contract number 260. This now is contract number 259. So progress reports and related documents, initiate a payment. Again, wait, let that process. You can see that was pretty quick for me. And it brought me right here to the payment main page. Again, I'm in 001 because this is a different contract. This is number 259. All right, same thing as before. We have a forms menu. We go to the forms menu, and we go to payment properties. This time, instead of starting it as an advance, I'm going to start it as a claim. And no, this is not my final period. And I'm just going to pick 1 month. So it's going to be 11/5/2019 to 12/4/2019. Again, you don't have to worry about this payment IRS code, but you can see again what's different here is I'm picking claim, not advance. So it's going to look a little different because claims are obviously handled slightly differently. Okay, I did that. Just like before, it now opens up some other options in the forms menu. I can't see them until I click the word forms in forms menu. And I have payment properties, the unitemized expenditure claim detail form, the payment voucher preview, which we've seen before, the payment uploads, which we've seen before, and the notes, which we've seen before. So of course, the only difference here is this, the unitemized expenditure claim detail form. So we'll click on it. And this is where I have to go in and type in how much I'm requesting for this category. Now, all these categories are grayed out because our contracts are only entered in the category of other expenses. So this would be the roll-up of all of your expenses. So let's say I had something for $3,000 and something for $7,000 and something for $4,000. Well, that's $14,000. So that's what I would type here, $14,000. Now, you may have match requirements, and in this case, mine does. It's set up for match requirements, and I don't remember the percentage, but I'm going to just say I have a match of, let's say, $7,000. And then you have an ability to type in comments. Not necessary. You can see there's no red asterisk. It's not required. And I'm going to zoom out because it looks like it's cutting some things off. Let's zoom back in here. And again, there's that accept. Now, this is kind of weird because I haven't actually uploaded anything yet, but yes, I am saying that what I'm about to do is just true and correct. And I will have another opportunity later to attest to that as well when I submit it. So you type in the amount you're asking for, the match amount that you have, any comments, again, not required, and then make sure you click on that accept for the payee certification and then hit save. Remember, if you don't have the ability to click that accept button, you're in the wrong role. You're not logged in as the right type of user. Okay, so that looks good, and I'm done with this page, and I'll go back to the forms menu. And we'll do what we did before, the uploads. So we did the expenditure claim detail form, and we'll go to the payment uploads, and we'll have our documents. So again, it's important to name these properly, and you might want to make sure that you get the right format from your contract manager. But again, this is under other, so I'm going to go to other expenses, and I'm going to say, what were the names of these?
DRR. Here's a good one for you, Jeff. You could say, DRR, voucher 1, and the date. And the DRR is your detailed reimbursement request. That is the details that support that other. So while Jeff was putting in, $14,000 for other, that DRR will have all of the details related to that other. And so you want to make sure that the amount listed on that DRR matches the amount that you just put in Grants Gateway.
So just to be clear, the date you're telling me to type in here, today's date or the date that this covers?
The date that you're submitting it.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because there may be changes. So, for instance, if the contract manager needs to go back to the individual and say, hey, your DRR doesn't match, at least there could be, the following date or the next date would have the date of submission.
Okay, yep, that's helpful. So I'm going to go to choose file. I just put mine on my desktop. And again, I'm just going to take this blank one and I'll hit save. Okay. I'm going to do something else. Why don't you give me some guidance on that one too, Joanna, if you can.
So this, let's say your next supporting document are your TIFs or your training information forms as well. And so that would support some of the costs that are associated with your voucher. So you could say TIF, voucher 1, and the date.
Okay, I'll find my TIF, which was this right here.
Yeah.
And I'll hit save. Okay, and then you may actually have receipts or that type of supporting documentation, correct?
Exactly.
Give me guidance on the name here.
You would just say backup, voucher 1, and then the date of submission.
And just because I don't have too many PDFs on my desktop here, I'm just going to pick I have something called sample supporting documentation. All right, and I'll hit save. Okay, and you may have more than one because maybe you have more than one voucher backup document, and I'm going to do that just to show you. Again, I'll do other.
You would say backup 2. You would probably label it backup 2, voucher 1. Because if this is your number 1 voucher, so this way you can delineate what's different from one voucher to another. Some people submit more than one voucher at a time in a way. So like in one day, they'll submit 2 vouchers in one day. So this way, you always want to label this information goes with this voucher. So it could be voucher 1, voucher 2, voucher 3, and then that way you can, keep each voucher submission separate in your own mind too.
Makes sense. Okay. Okay. So you could have, a long list of items here. I'm going to stop with this 4, and we're going to go back to the Forms menu. And you can see we have the notes. Again, you may not decide to use that. You may not need to use that. We've done the uploads, and then you might want to do the payment voucher preview. You don't have to do that, but if you want to double check what you've done, this is an easy way of doing it. Now, if your documents were 500 pages long or several hundred pages long or something, or very large, it may take quite a while to actually process it. You can see for me, that was pretty quick. And I click on Open File, and again, we've got this cover page. So this is my application number. This is my organization's SFS vendor ID. This is my voucher number 001. This is a claim, not an advance. And the dates that I'm covering here, so I just did it for 1 month. I put in $14,000. And this is now, the next few pages are essentially a screenshot from that Forms menu that we saw in the gateway. So this is my claim, $14,000. So again, in my example here, it was 3 documents adding up to $3,000, $7,000, and $4,000. And then I put in my match. I had comments. So again, this is exactly just a screenshot of that document. The next page, though, is kind of a table of contents, like I said. And because Joanna gave us the naming, we can see it's a lot easier to understand what's going to be included here. All right. First is the DRR voucher, then the TIF voucher, then backup voucher number 1, backup 2, voucher number 1. All right, so there should be 4 documents following, and here they are. So here is the TIF. Is that what I did first? No, the DRR, sorry. And this spans several pages. This is the, where does that start? And here's the next attachment, the trainee information form. And here's just a sample document. So those last 2 documents, it was just me typing supporting documentation. And there's 1 of them, and there's 2 of them. So it's not 4 pages because some of them span several pages, but it is 4 separate documents. You can see this one was page 2 of 2. But just to show you, it's not going to number each page. So we don't know exactly where one starts and one ends, except for the header and kind of the formatting of the document itself. So to me, this looks fine. I filled out my payment properties. I filled out the expenditure claim detail form. I added my uploads. I confirmed with myself that those things that I uploaded add up to $14,000. Of course, they don't for real, but in yours it will. And now I'm ready to submit it. And again, just like you did before, under status changes, you can either cancel it, or in my case, I'm going to apply the status of payment submitted. Okay, here's that attestation again. Yes, I agree that everything I'm doing that I've just provided is just, true, and correct. And I've submitted it. Okay, so it's now in that status of payment in review PM. The program manager is the first stop, and they will review it. They may choose to send it back to me in the status of payment info requested. Maybe maybe I only included 2 of the 3 attachments, and I'm only adding up to $10,000. And they say, well, if you really want us to pay that $14,000, you need to provide us this other information that includes that other $4,000. So they can send it back to me in the status of payment in review PM, and I can, payment info requested, and I could go back into the Forms menu, and I could re-add something in payment uploads. Now, I can't do it right now. There's no save button because I didn't move it to that status, but you could if they had sent it to you in that status. But just to be aware, that's the only thing you can change. You cannot come back and change something in the unitemized expenditure claim detail form. You can only add new uploads. So again, that would be a case where your reviewer looked at it, there was something that didn't match up right. They want to give you a chance to fix it instead of having to start over. They send it back to you in this status called payment info requested, and you go back in, you make your uploads, or you add another upload, and then you go to your status change and you submit it back to the program manager, the reviewer. So that may happen in certain cases. If they needed to adjust something in this form, they could do this for you. They could adjust the amounts here in the claim detail form. Can you delete a document if necessary? You can. Of course, I can't now because I've, I can start a new one. I go here, initiate a payment. Now I'm doing number 002. I'm just going to quickly fill it out, go to the properties. Again, it's a claim, no, and I'm going to do the same dates. And I'm just going to skip the expenditure claim detail form and go to the uploads. If I go to uploads and I pick other, I'm just going to type in an explanation here, a description there, and then I'll go find that document and hit save. And then let's say I do another one. And hit save. Notice there is this delete button. So it's kind of weird, but you click delete and then save. So you're saving the fact that you want to delete this particular one. So if I hit save, you can see it's gone. So yes, you can delete them, not once you submit them, but you can delete them before you submit them. Now, if there's something that's extraneous in there, the reviewer, the program manager or fiscal manager can choose to not include it in the voucher. You can see this check mark. It's grayed out for me, but they can choose to include it or not include it in the voucher itself. So maybe it's a mistake and they just want it to be ignored. They can do that. Okay, I will state back to our website, the grants management website, back to our training and guidance for grant applicants and our manual. Because if you do need to have a new account added for you, vendor user manual right here starts on page 19. So if you were to click on this, download it, page 19 is where the delegated admin can go in and create new accounts, including that grantee payment signatory that your organization may need.